Breaking news. If you haven't heard, Ivana Trump, the ex-wife of former President Donald Trump and businesswoman, passes away at 73. She helped build his real estate empire, though she was better known for being one half of the quintessential 1980s power couple. And this is coming straight from the New York Times. Now, before I complete reading the article, I want to say, as a New Yorker and a lifelong New Yorker, I remember vividly when Donald Trump and Ivana Trump were everywhere promoting the Trump Plaza, the Trump Casino, the Trump Tower. It was, wealth, riches, multi-millionaire status. And as a little girl, growing up in the late 80s, I was fascinated by it. I'm not going to lie. Even though I was living in a 6th floor walk up with my grandmother and my aunt, my mother's sister, I was really intrigued. I was like, oh wow, we could just get on the bus and just go down to Midtown and see Trump Towers. Now, my grandmother couldn't stand him at all. But around this time, this was just before the news broke that he had an affair on Ivana with Marla Maples. So I'm going to get back to that, and then I'm going to tie in the whole thing with the presidency, okay? So this article comes in the New York Times and is written by Clay Risen. Ivana Trump, the glamorous Czech American businesswoman whose high-profile marriage to Donald J. Trump in the 1980s established them as one of the era's quintessential New York power couples, died on Thursday at her home in Manhattan. She was 73. Mr. Trump announced her death in a statement on Social Truth, the conservative social media platform he founded. The New York City police were investigating whether Ms. Trump fell down the stairs at her townhouse on the Upper East Side, according to 2 law enforcement officials with knowledge of the matter. One of the officials said that there was no signs of forced entry at the home and that the death appeared to be accidental. A spokeswoman for the city's chief medical examiner's office said it would investigate the death. Throughout their marriage, Ms. Trump commanded almost as much media attention as her husband, as they helped define the 1980s, an era of gaudy excess among the elite, an image that Mr. Trump used to fuel his turn as an outsized television personality before his 2016 run for the White House. It was Miss Trump who rechristened her husband the Donald, a moniker that became a fixture in New York's tabloid press, where she was a regular and boisterous presence, every bit as ambitious as her husband. She liked to brag that in 50 years, we will be the Rockefellers. Where her husband was brash and often uncouth, Miss Trump came across to the city's moneyed elite as charming and sophisticated, opening doors to rarefied social circles that Mr. Trump could then barrel through. She was more than a socialite. Though Mr. Trump often bragged about his business prowess, Miss Trump played a critical part in building his real estate empire, beginning soon after their marriage in 1977. Often described as detail-obsessed and a workaholic, she worked alongside her husband on several of his early signature projects, like the development of Trump Tower in Manhattan and the Trump Taj Mahal Casino in Atlantic City, New Jersey. She was the vice president for interior design for his company, the Trump Organization, and managed one of his most prized properties, the Plaza Hotel, all while raising their 3 children. The couples divorced in 1990, driven in part by Mr. Trump's affair with Marla Maples, whom he later married, provided tabloid fodder for weeks. In a deposition, Ms. Trump accused him of R-ing her. Oh, wow. Though she later said that she had not meant the word literally. The divorce made Ms. Trump something of a heroine for spurned wives everywhere. She even had a cameo in the 1996 film The First Wives Club, in which she tells a group of disgruntled divorced women, "Don't get mad, get everything." She used her business prowess to great effect as well. She developed a line of clothing, jewelry, and beauty products, which she promoted through outlets like the Home Shopping Network and QVC. She invested in real estate domestically and in Europe, and wrote several books, including The Best Is Yet to Come, Coping with Divorce and Enjoying Life Again, and most recently, Raising Trump, a memoir of her marriage to Donald Trump. In a family statement posted on Facebook, her children, Eric, Donald Jr., and Ivanka Trump, wrote, "Our mother was an incredible woman, a force in business, a world-class athlete, a radiant beauty, and caring mother and friend." And on her social media platform, Mr. Trump wrote of her, "She was a wonderful, beautiful, and amazing woman who led a great and inspirational life." He added, "Rest in peace, Ivana." And it also reads, Ivana Marie Zelnikova was born on February 20th, 1949, in Waldov, Czechoslovakia, now known as Zlin, and located in the Czech Republic. Her father, Milos Zelnicek, was an electrical engineer, and her mother, Marie Frankova Zelnikova, was a telephone operator. Athletically gifted as a child, Ivana was practically adept at skiing and competed with the Czech junior national team, an experience that allowed her to see at least some of the world beyond her small town. Although Mr. Trump liked to say that she was an alternate on the Czech Olympic ski team, there is no proof that this was the case. She attended Charles University in Prague and received a master's degree in physical education in 1972. She was briefly married to Alfred Winklemar, an Austrian ski instructor, in what she later termed a Cold War marriage, which allowed her to receive an Austrian passport and move to Canada. She said that they never lived together and that the marriage was dissolved in 1973. In Canada, she worked as a ski instructor and as a model promoting the 1976 Olympics in Montreal. It was while working at a reception in New York that she met Mr. Trump, who at 29 was just beginning to plot his rise to the top of the Manhattan real estate world. The two married less than a year later in a ceremony officiated by Norman Vincent Peale, the author and Protestant clergyman. One of Mr. Trump's first big projects was redeveloping the Asian Commodore Hotel adjacent to Grand Central Terminal in Midtown Manhattan. Ms. Trump, who was then working on her interior design license, jumped in alongside him. At first, she oversaw plumbers and electricians, and later, near the end, she passed judgment on every pillow, every table and chair, and every brass column. As she told Vanity Fair in 1988. The hotel reopened in 1980 as the Grand Hyatt, a glitzy marker of a new decade of rapid development and material excess, qualities that would become synonymous with the Trump brand. Ivana soon became an equal, if behind-the-scenes partner in Mr. Trump's business. She emphasized opulence. It was she who chose the pink marble and gleaming brass of the Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue. Though she insisted that her husband was the boss, it was also clear that she was among his closest confidants, advising him, for example, on his decision to go into the casino business in Atlantic City. She held even more sway over the growing Trump household. In the introduction to Raising Trump, she bragged about Donald Jr., Ivanka, and Eric, and missed no words about who did what in their upbringing. I believe the credit for raising such great kids belongs to me, she wrote. I was in charge of raising our kids before I was divorced, and I had sole custody of them after the split. I made a decision about their education, activities, travel, childcare, and allowances. When each one finished college, I said to my ex-husband, here is the finished project. Now it's your turn. The couple used their wealth to take on the New York social scene, but they ended up projecting themselves far beyond it into the TV sets and reading material of Americans far from the skyscrapers of Midtown. They became fodder for gossip columns, People magazine profiles, and even Saturday Night Live sketches, and I remember that. And as the couple rode high toward the end of the 1980s, with a fortune estimated at $3 billion, she coyly batted down speculation about an imminent run for the White House by her husband. It's not for the next 10 years, definitely not, she told Vanity Fair. There is so much to do. We have invested in this town close to $1 billion. We can't just put it in escrow and go to the White House. It would go down the drain in a second. It's too young, too new. But in 10 years, Donald is going to be just 51 years old, a young man. A year later, however, their marriage began to implode as rumors swirled about Mr. Trump's relationship with Miss Maples. The Trumps were seen fighting in public, and Mr. Trump reportedly locked her out of her office at the Plaza Hotel. After almost a year of gossip and legal posturing, a court granted the couple a divorce in December 1990 on the grounds of cruel and inhumane treatment by Mr. Trump. But a bitter settlement fight ensued when Ms. Trump insisted that he owed her half of his fortune, not knowing perhaps that he was close to bankruptcy at the time. Ms. Trump developed a following of sorts. Fans held candlelight vigils outside the plaza and waited for hours to get a glimpse of her leaving home or court. Liz Smith, the vulnerable gossip columnist, became a sort of Ivana whisperer, filling her articles with chunks of dirt about Mr. Trump and helping to establish Ms. Trump's post-divorce image as a strong woman unfairly wronged. The couple finalized the settlement in 1992, largely along the lines of their last prenuptial agreement. She received $14 million, their 45-room mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut, an apartment in Trump Plaza on the Upper East Side, and access to their Mar-a-Lago mansion in Florida for 1 month a year. She also received $650,000 a year to support their 3 children. Ms. Trump bought her Upper East Side townhouse just off Fifth Avenue near Central Park after the divorce and decorated it in her own ostentatious style. My home reflects my style perfectly, she wrote in Raising Trump. There was the marble staircase heading up to the white piano room on the second floor, followed by a leopard sitting room another flight up. She began to build her own business empire, this time around fashion and beauty, and more important, sought to construct an identity separate from her famous ex-husbands. You don't have to put down the second name, she told a reporter from the New York Times. Ivana is what the people call me. While developing her clothing and jewelry business, she hired 3 secretaries to help her handle mounds of fan mail, which she tried to answer personally. She became a regular on daytime talk shows and was always happy to make a TV or movie cameo. Her high pile of blonde hair and her still pronounced Czech accent instantly recognized. Despite her admonition in the First Wives Club to take everything, she largely spared Mr. Trump from further public embarrassment. This is not a revenge book for Donald, she told the Times about this. The best is yet to come. This is an advice book for women. I threw in some of my experiences, but 90% is the stories of women. The last thing I want to do is bring Donald in. She married 2 more times. Her marriage to Riccardo Mascochelli, an Italian businessman, in 1995, ended in divorce 2 years later. She married an Italian actor, Rossano Rubaconde, in 2008, in a ceremony at Mar-a-Lago with Mr. Trump in attendance. That marriage lasted less than a year. Along with her 3 children, Ms. Trump is survived by 10 grandchildren. Although she said little about her ex-husband's presidency, Ms. Trump occasionally ranked Melania Trump, who married Mr. Trump 15 years after he and Ivana Trump are divorced, with Miss Maples, his second wife, sandwiched uncomfortably in between. During an appearance on Good Morning America in 2017, Miss Trump said she was basically first Trump wife, adding, "I'm first lady, okay?" An apparent malapropism that drew a sharp response from Melania Trump's spokesperson. And there you have it, the life of Ivana Trump. Now, a lot of what you saw in the 1980s with the empire growing, the Trump empire of Donald Trump, she was the backbone of that. Without Ivana Trump, there wouldn't have been a Donald Trump. Without her putting in her sweat and her work and getting her hands dirty, there wouldn't have been a princess. And she helped to groom him to be president of the United States. This whole project of him wanting to be president didn't start when Obama got elected in 2008. This started all the way back in the 1980s. And many people, because I read this years ago, back in 2016, that many people said it started with Ivana. Which is why when he was elected, even though they had they had a horrible divorce, she never spoke bad about him being president, and she supported him in everything he did because she was the backbone to getting him there to the White House. So if you want to get mad that Trump became president, this is the woman who basically lit the spark. It wasn't Marla. That's why he got rid of her, because Marla couldn't take him to that top. But Melania was able to do it because she spoke 7 languages. So he saw her as an asset for international relations. She fluently speaks 7 languages. Marla only speaks, I think, maybe 1 and it knows a little bit of, I believe, Spanish. But those 2 Central European women really were an asset to him. And he realized he made a mistake with Marla Maples, so he got Melania Trump. Because if you remember, she was a Maxim model. I think she was a supermodel also. But she used to do a lot of covers with Maxim magazine, all those, before they had King magazine and Smooth magazine, there was Maxim. She was on the cover of those. Because, Smooth and King, that was for urban modeling. And that's how he noticed her, from those magazines. But he needed a strong woman who was smart. And Ivana really, really was the one to do it. Which is why she said, we're not thinking about the White House right now. We're not thinking about that. We're not thinking about that at all. But in 10 years, he will be 51 and he will be young. Okay? He will be young. So I also want to say that I remember the whole Marla Maples scandal. And I remember my grandmother hated him and my aunt hated him. And they was Team Ivana because they felt like you had no respect for this woman who was educated, who really sacrificed things that she was doing to basically help build your empire. And her whole world sits around you and the kids. And you cheat on her with a not so popular theater actress who didn't have a good rep on Broadway. So they didn't like him. And I know if they would have been here in 2016, they would not have voted for him. So that's how I got introduced to the Trumps. Seeing them on Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. Seeing them on Oprah when he first talked about running for president. You know, when you go back in time and you look at the clues are there about what's going to happen years later. But we don't pay attention to them at the time it's happening in real time because we're just listening to them speak. But looking back, they were telling you that he was going to be president. You know? It just so happened that the person that he crushed, people thought was going to win. And that was Hillary. And I want to say that with Ivana, the one thing I liked about her is that she really wasn't messy. She was very, quiet. She wasn't like her husband. Her husband is messy. But she wasn't messy. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that she was born during the Cold War in Central Europe. And she grew up in, I believe it was communism at the time, or it was about to be communist country. But she knew what it was like to really have, your freedoms infringed on by communists. She knew about that communist life, and it wasn't pretty. That's why she married that man, that first man, so she could get out of there and go to Canada. And from Canada, come to the United States. She had a plan, which was, I'm going to live good. I'm going to live well. That's why she became a model. That's why she was into fitness. And she got Donald Trump. But in the end, Trump didn't treat her right. He didn't treat her right. Now, they wasn't enemies for too long because her karma came back with the Marla Maples marriage being, short-lived. And the joke, because I remember in 97 when we was getting divorced, that was the biggest joke. Everybody laughed at him and they laughed at her, and it was like Ivana got her revenge. So when he got elected to when he was running for president and people really liked him, I was like, wait a minute. Y'all kind of do remember how he did Ivana. And then Marla, the whole scandal. And it's like people forgot about that. But had he tried to run for president in the 90s or even in the early 2000s, no. But what rehabilitated his image was two things. When he married Melania Trump and when he got on something that was new and brewing, and that was reality TV with the show The Apprentice. That is what made him relevant again, and that's when he got respected again. Because in the 90s, people were not feeling Trump. They were not. As a person, no. Businessmen, yeah, but as a person, no. It was The Apprentice, and when he married Melania Trump. That's what did it. And with that being said, I'm signing out. Thank you for listening. I know it was a long read, but it's, the New York Times. So, there is one thing I do want to say. They did find her down the bottom of the stairs in her home. Now, it was in New York where it happened. And she was found, she was just found there. And that's really sad. So that's why nobody knows what happened to her. So in the upcoming weeks, they're going to release the cause. And so, I never had any issues with her. I thought she was in my eyes, I thought she was decent as a person. And I just think that her children have a lot of his ways. They don't really have the mother's ways, really. Except because I've never read anything bad about her. Except for, she just lives her life and she supported Donald Trump being president. But with that being said, I'm signing off. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe if you haven't. Hit the notification bell. Share, comment, like. And I'll talk to you soon. Later.